r/ask Reddit. What's the strangest date you've ever been on? I should use a throwaway, but whatever. First time meeting a date from Tinder who I'd talked to on the phone and felt she was pretty upfront but real. Also Tinder said she was 20. I never questioned. She had a rough childhood and had moved a few states away and was staying at an apartment with her mom for now. I'm forgiving and that all seemed reasonable. Just a girl down on her luck. I knew about where she was and happened to be around that area of town on day, so I texted her to see if she was busy. She wasn't doing anything and invited me right over. I arrived and went to the door. She came out barefoot and asked if I wanted to walk around the neighborhood. It was winter and we are now walking around an apartment complex with her barefoot. Just across the street was a grocery store and she wanted to run in for jelly beans. I don't ask many questions, so in we went, her still not wearing shoes or socks, for the jelly beans. This grocery store has candy you can purchase by the pound. So she goes to the jelly bean dispenser and gets a few handfuls and shoves them in her pocket. I was making enough money at the time to not wind up on a security tape with this girl stealing candy, so I insisted she let me buy her some. She said something like, "No, I'm going to give you a story to tell your friends later." She also had some money on her and wanted a jar of pickles. So after the pickles were purchased we went back to her place. I was out of my comfort zone, but still pretty excited. We went around to the back of her apartment, which was her room. For the first time I'm starting to really question things. I don't know where the alarm went off. It could have been the corner by the door with the shotgun uncased and just out. It could have been the blow up chair. It could have been the filthy barn beside her bed that she was comfortable with. It could have been her cursing at her mom when we walked in. It could have been the poor puppy in another corner, stuck in a small crate with a blanket over the top taking away most of the room's view. What I lit up on was the school books and book bag in the corner. I said, "Oh, you go to local community college? I went there a few years ago." She said, "No, I go to school name." Thinking connecting some dots. Holy shit. Like school name the high school. Huh, yes me. How old are you? Huh, 16. But it's legal in this state, so what's it matter? Me, nope. Have a good night. My freshman year in college I had a crush on a girl from my high school. When I asked her out, she informed me that she only dated women. I'm male. She insisted that we were still friends. She just didn't roll that way. She offered to be my wingman and I gladly took her up on the offer. A few weeks later she had set me up on a semi-blind date with one of her friends. We'll call her Monica. The three of us met at Arby's because we were fancy and my friend tried playing matchmaker. Pimp Ninja Man loves theater, and so do you, Monica. Monica loves music, and so do you, Pimp Ninja Man. The date was going fine, so my friend decided to leave Monica and I alone. We talked a bit more and decided to go see a movie. I didn't have a car at the time, so I hopped in Monica's passenger seat and we went on our way. That's when shit got weird. About 2 minutes after leaving Arby's, Monica receives a phone call. She says it's her roommate and she needs to answer it. She picks up the phone and I hear a man's voice. I was a bit surprised, but it's not too unusual for a girl to have a guy for a roommate. Monica and her roommate get into some kind of argument and she pulls over to a gas station. Another car pulls in right beside us. Again, I didn't think anything of it at the time. Monica turns to me and says I need to go talk to my roommate. Just wait here for a minute. I assume she just wants to be on the phone in private, but what happens next will shock you. Monica gets out of the car and goes to talk to the driver of the car that pulled in next to us. This is where I start to freak out. What are the odds that her roommate happened to pull up right beside us? I hear a bit of yelling and then I start thinking about an escape plan. At this point, Monica opens my car door and says, "Hey, I'm really sorry to do this, but my roommate is going to have to take you home." Now, this is the part of the movie where someone in the audience screams, "Don't you go with him." Now, that's how you get killed. White people always going with the strange man thinking everything will just be a-okay. I wish I could say I got smart, said, "No thank you, I'll just walk," and went home. But I didn't. With some combination of confusion and curiosity, I get out of Monica's car and head into the passenger seat of this stranger. We're in my hometown, so I know if he goes any direction he's not supposed to, I can just bail out of the car and run to freedom. The guy was pretty big. I was 6 feet 2 inches at the time, and he was significantly bigger than me, if that tells you anything. I don't remember his name, but we'll just call him Ross. Anyway, Ross starts driving back to my dorm, and we are sitting in awkward silence for most of the trip. Eventually, he says, "So how do you know Monica?" I knew something fishy was happening, so I wasn't about to say we were on a date. I just say, "Oh, we have a mutual friend," and hope Ross doesn't get suspicious. He just nodded his head and kept driving. Apparently Ross was resolving some anger in his head, because out of nowhere he starts talking, as if we were in the middle of a much more personal conversation. Yeah. A lot of people at our church are upset that Monica and I live together. I think they are just assuming we are having sex all the time or something. It shouldn't even matter since we are engaged, but it's still annoying to hear stuff like that, you know? I just nod my head as I realize what just happened. Apparently my lesbian friend set me up on a blind date with an engaged girl, and her fiancé came and picked me up to take me home. I was silent the rest of the night. I told Ross the wrong dorm, so he wouldn't know where I lived, and I got out of the car and just walked around campus for a bit. It was definitely the strangest date I've ever been on. Okay, I have never shared this story online before, but here goes. I was going to have a second date with this girl. She knew of 3 parties happening on the same night, so she suggested that we hit all 3. Sounded good to me, so off we go. At party 1, her best friend from college is there that she hasn't seen in 4 years. They immediately run off together, and I'm left with the friend's boyfriend having a drink. I think to myself, this is no big deal. She hasn't seen her friend in a long time, and the night has a lot more to go. She comes back after a while and suggests we head on to the other party. Great. Arrive at second party. My date immediately runs off with some other friends. Like, Tim. Oh my god, how are you doing? And dashes across the party to find him. I slowly follow behind, but then they keep scurrying on to talk to other people without the girl making it clear that she wanted me to come. I feel really awkward because she doesn't introduce me or say anything about me. I'm just an awkward guy there that no one knows. I get tired of that and go to the bathroom, where I find that the door has been ripped off its hinges. I find a screwdriver and fix the door before using the bathroom. Fast forward 30 minutes, my date finds me and suggests we go to the final party, but this time, her friend Tim is going to join us. Okay. Arrive at third party. As soon as we walk in the door, Tim says he needs cigarettes, and the girl and Tim run out for cigarettes and leave me at this new party with all these other people I don't know. They are gone for 45 minutes, by which time I decide that this date isn't working out and I should just go home. When my date comes back with cigarettes, I tell her I'm leaving, and she flips out. She starts screaming at me in front of everyone about how she was going to have sex with me later, and how I ruined everything. Then she proceeds to scream, "You're not leaving me, I'm leaving you," after which she bolts out and slams the door. Then everyone at this other party, whom I don't know, is staring at me while my date, who brought me there, has abandoned me. Someone eventually comes and offers me a drink. I stay for another hour and laugh it off with the people at the party. I'm still friends with some of those fine people today. Edit. No, I didn't fix the door on Magnolia Street. Edit 2. There are lots of ways to fix a door that comes off its hinges with just a screwdriver, assuming the screws are still there. Also, I had a toolbox under the sink, so there was more than just a screwdriver. A few people noticed that I was doing it and thought that I lived in that apartment. Eventually the apartment's resident, a nice girl as I recall, came to check on me and was appreciative that I was fixing it. Never saw her again, though. That one is easy. Met this girl online, and the way the conversations went, it was always friendly, getting to know you type banter. After a few online conversations, we meet up at a bar by her. The plans for the evening were to have drinks there, then go play Donkey Kong Country at her place. Being the oblivious male I am, I genuinely was excited to play some DKC on Super Nintendo. We meet up at the bar and things go fine. I wasn't really attracted to her at all, but she was nice, and we had an alright time at the bar. So we get back to her place and start watching TV. I look around and don't see a Super Nintendo. Thought maybe it was in her bedroom. I don't mention it because I don't want to be rude. She makes some drinks. We're watching Drunk History when all of a sudden she looks at me with murder in her eyes. Are we going to stop playing games? I look at her, smiling, trying to play it off. Do you mean Donkey Kong Country? She really didn't appreciate that. She scoffs and then proceeds to chide me about how guys are always wanting to play games and want sex. I told her the only game I was wanting to play was DKC. This is when it got weird. She gets up off the couch, calmly, walks to the kitchen and pulls a butcher knife out of somewhere. She just stands in the kitchen, still with the look of murder in her eyes, and stares me down. She doesn't move at all, just staring with the butcher knife at her side. I look back for what feels like a few minutes, and then I jump up and dash for the front door. I didn't even bother closing the door. Behind me I hear the door slam hard, and she's shouting at the top of her lungs, "Fucking asshole, playing games, fuck you." So a night of what I was hoping to be relaxing, friendly conversation, and Donkey Kong Country turned into my maybe I could have been murdered dating story. TL. Doctor, met friendly girl online for drinks and hopefully Donkey Kong Country on SNES. Felt like I was going to be murdered by the end of it. Edit. So a lot of people have been asking what she could have wanted. Here's my guess, based on how she was acting the further we hung out at her place. I'm only assuming, so don't take it for gospel. This was before Netflix and chill, so I think this was her way of getting me back there for something other than EKC, but she didn't want to be super upfront and or awkward about it. Of course, at the time, I didn't read it that way, and based on how she was acting, I think she assumed this is what happened with all guys on dates. Or she had super low self-esteem. Again, I'm just assuming from my observations. Well, this one time I took my dates to dinner at what seemed to be a front for some type of illicit activity. We had just moved to a new area and we wanted to check out the local shops and restaurants. While we were wandering, we stumbled into a tiny Italian place. Back home, the small hole in the wall restaurants always have the best food, so we were excited to give it a shot. Big curtains were covering the entry windows, so we had no idea what was inside until we trudged through the door. Inside, we were met with emptiness and silence. We both immediately thought the store was closed, and I spun around and searched for the store hours posted somewhere on the door. While I was looking, we heard a heavy thud as a young woman barked, "I'll be right with you." She appeared, greeted us confusingly, and asked us what she could do for us. Which, looking back, is probably a red flag. But we were naive and hungry, so we said we were there for dinner. She looked puzzled, but motioned us to follow her to a booth right by the entrance. She then disappeared into the back, and we heard a muffled conversation between our hostess and a man. The consensus was basically they were not prepared for us, or didn't know how to proceed. I asked my date if she wanted to split, but she insisted we stay for the story. The square-shaped balding man burst through the kitchen door with 2 glasses of water for us, and in a very loud and deep voice he explained that it was his birthday and we would eat what he felt like making us. We wholeheartedly agreed. We waited around 30 minutes, and he again returned with 3 large bowls of spaghetti and meat sauce. He placed 2 bowls in front of us, and 1 next to me for himself. He sat with us and ate. We had light and awkward conversation with him during, and he kept asking us jokingly if we were cops or with the health board. He was incredibly nervous about us, so my date kept cracking corny puns or awful jokes because he would horribly laugh at anything designed with humor. We talked about our lives, the cities we've lived in, our pets. He had a teacup chihuahua named Princess, and his wife. He decided we were good people and didn't change us for the meal. We wished him a happy birthday, he hugged us, and we went on our way. Easily the best spaghetti I've ever had in my life. The restaurant, unfortunately, no longer exists. About 8 months ago, Tinder date. She suggests brunch at Maximum's Wine Dive on Bikini. We're in Dallas. I pick her up at the Arpeggio Apartments in Victory Park. She's not ready, so she buzzes me in. Her apartment is beautiful, lots of high dollar stuff, no roommate. We go to Maximum's at 1 PM. She drinks an entire bottle of champagne by herself. We leave, and in the car she says she wants to stop by a shop in West Village. I park in the parking garage and get out. I look for her, and don't see her. I hear a noise, so I look around my car and she's squatting next to the wall peeing on the ground. We go into the shop. She takes a few dresses into the changing room and tells me to come over. I stand outside the changing room and she pulls me inside. She completely undresses, gets in the clothes, asks me what I think, undresses, gets in more clothes, etc. She takes about $1,500 worth of clothes to the counter and tells the cashier she really has to pee. Cashier says sorry. My date begs, so cashier relents and takes her into the back, but it's too late. The damage is done. She also buys a new pair of pants. On the way back to her apartment, she answers a call and starts talking in a foreign language that I can't place. Couldn't even guess the continent. She's very nervous and upset. She hangs up and tells me she has to go to her other apartment at the Cirque, also in Victory Park. She asks me to go in with her. We go into her apartment, which is also completely beautiful and belongs only to her. She has a badass telescope that I start playing with. In the mirror, I see her open a safe and put something in her purse. She tells me we need to leave and asks me to take her to my house. We go to my house and she instantly passes out. Stays passed out for about 6 hours. Wakes up, wants Dairy Queen. It's closed and she starts crying. I take her to Sonic. She gets a cheeseburger, a chili dog, cheese fries, and a sundae. We come home. She eats it and throws up. Passes out on my couch. I read and go to sleep. Next morning she asks if she can stay and watch football. I tell her I have plans and need to take her home. She says she can't go to either of her apartments. I tell her too bad, I have plans, and drop her off at Cirque. She texted asking when we could see each other again, but I never responded. This story isn't as strange as some, but it's my strangest. A guy I met a few times contacted me, asked me on a date. I had never been asked on a date before and accepted despite thinking him a little strange and having heard some odd things about his family. He picked me up and everything seemed good. We decided to grab a pizza and eat it in a park. When we went to purchase the pizza, it turned out he worked there and had all his co-workers come out to gawk at me. This guy wasn't very popular with the ladies and seemed to be proving he had a date. I'm bad in social situations and got super uncomfortable but didn't know how to bail, and we went to the park. It was very awkward and I wanted to go home by the end of it. We mostly just sat in awkward silence and tried not to hear each other chewing. I thought I was going home, but he decided he wanted to stop at his house. I agree because I honestly did not know how to disagree. First dating experience. His home turned out to be with his parents. We were both 18 to 20. This wouldn't have been so bad had they not all 10 of his siblings. I don't remember exactly how many siblings he had, and his parents were home and wanted to meet me. They weren't just a big nice family, they were very religious and looked like they belonged to a cult. They all had long hair, homemade clothing, they were homeschooled. The mom said hello, then the dad came in and nobody was allowed to say a word while he questioned me on what me and his son had done on our date and when the family would be seeing me again. It was terrifying. My date showed me his pet turtles, which were really cute, and finally drove me home. He tried to kiss me after making it clear he thought we were in a relationship after one date. At this point I almost ran from the car. I messaged him later on explaining that I was only looking for friends at this point in time. TL. Doctor. First date I'd ever been on. Ended up being paraded before the staff at a pizza place and meeting my date's very religious family. He thought we were dating by the end of the failed date. Years ago, I met a girl online, and after we'd approved of each other's photos and list of interests, we talked on the phone and hit it off right away. She lived about an hour away, and she said she wanted to go to a local national park and go hiking and have a picnic. I get to her house to pick her up and see that she has packed a tent, sleeping bags, a cooler, and basically a full weekend worth of camping equipment. I told her I thought we were just going hiking, and she said I figured we could just camp out overnight. Just get me back home in time for church in the morning. So we head out, we set up the tent, go for a hike, swim in the lake, have dinner in the lodge, head back to the campsite, make a fire, and settle in for the night. Later, in the tent, stuff starts happening. After a while she says, "Can we wait a bit on that and just go to sleep?" I oblige and we sleep. In the early morning hours, she wakes me up by making it very clear the wait is over. After we finish, she starts crying. She apologizes and says she's not ready to be in a relationship. I tell her I understand, but I'm pretty confused by this point. We pack up everything, and I drive her home and drop her off at her house. About 15 minutes later, I get a call on my cell phone. It's my dad. He asks, "What the hell are you doing?" I tell him I have no idea what he's talking about. He says the sheriff's department just came by here looking for you and asking if I knew your whereabouts. You're wanted in the disappearance of some girl. Her family said she never came home last night. They went to your place first but nobody was there. Apparently, she wasn't home for church and her family freaked out. I called her and told her to please contact the sheriff and let them know she was not, in fact, kidnapped. She laughed and then called them. We never had a second date. I started talking to a girl I came across on a dating site. We made plans to meet about 1 week. After we began talking, I ended up cancelling the plans a few hours before we were supposed to meet, as I had something come up. Told her I was available the following day as we do not live in the same city. A few hours later she responded. Asked me if I wanted to take a road trip to another city a few hours west from where I'm located. She just wanted a co-pilot to keep her company. I agreed, although partially because I felt bad for changing plans at last minute the previous day. I was skeptical. I've never just taken a random road trip with some girl that I haven't met before. She picks me up in the morning. Not too awkward at first. Easy conversation for the most part. Within 10 minutes of being on the road she needs to piss, but can't wait for next gas station. She abruptly pulls over on side of highway and does her business. Okay, I'm thinking whatever, you gotta go, right? The place we were traveling to is about 200 kilometers from where I lived. Let's just say we had to make another 5 stops, 2 more on highway and 3 gas stations, before we arrived at our destination. Yes, I started to count after the 3rd stop. Anyways, I'm definitely thinking this girl has some kind of standard or issues. That's a lot of bus breaks in such a short amount of time. Okay, so I was told she needed to pick a few things up in **** city. So it wasn't just things, it was her 74-year-old grandmother, whom I would shortly be meeting for lunch, along with a few other members of her family. I said to her, "WTF, you're kidding, right?" Well, she wasn't. Well, FFS. At this point I did not have much of a choice considering she is my ride back home. Long story short, it was awkward as fuck. Her aunt, a cousin and some family friend with her grandma, it was like a frickin' family reunion. I felt like I was in some kind of dark comedy show, and I had to improvise bullshit. Anyways, made it back home after 4 more pee breaks, and having to pretend / lie to her grandmother about actually knowing anything about this girl. Yeah, I didn't talk to her again. How is that for awkward? Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe the channel.